Okay, we have our next appointee, governor's appointee. We have Mr., and I hope I am pronouncing it correctly. If I'm not, please correct me, Mr. Dawood Gotz.
Dawood Gotz, that's
Dawood Gotz. You're up for the Chief of the Office of Technology Services. Welcome.
Thank you.
And you may proceed.
I have some family members.
Please, please, by all means, absolutely.
Yeah, I will introduce them in the order they're seated on the second row. My older son, Bijan, student from San Francisco State University. My wife, a social worker with Placer County, next to him. My daughter from Folsom High School, and my younger son, Javad, next to them. And my brother, physician from Fairfield, is here also. The neighborhood wanted to come, but I told them it's a small room. If I may, I'll start with my opening statement. First of all, thank you for having me. Good afternoon and Happy New Year to all of you. It is really a great honor and a privilege to sit in front of you today. I would like to thank Governor Brown for giving me this opportunity. Most of my 30 years of information technology experience has been with the state of California. I am grateful that I can use those public and private sector experiences to lead an organization that I was a part of for 17 years. Office of Technology Services, or what we call OTEC, runs the computer systems that have been approved and have been put into production by our customers. We have many initiatives underway currently, but really my focus and our attention are on security, reliability, cost-effective services, and customer service. Accountability is also important to me. If there is a problem at the data center, I'm the one responsible, and I would expect to be held accountable. Mr. Chair, I'll stop there and be happy to answer any questions.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much for your brevity, and to your family, to your son's daughter, to your wife, brother, and yes, to your brother. Welcome to each and every one of you. I just have a couple questions, and I wanted, obviously, you touched upon one issue, which is the issue of security. Obviously, you know, we've all witnessed what's happened as of late with Sony, and we don't know if it was whether it was the North Koreans or whether it was actually an inside job, an internal hack. You know, enlighten us a little bit with your views on the issue of security, given that we have so much data, probably the largest amount of data, if not outside the federal government in Washington, D.C. Well, there we go. Is that a security issue right there?
Yep.
Okay. You took care of it. Thank you very much. That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. Yeah.
Well, I'd be happy to talk about that topic. Everyone is vulnerable, and we know that, but we watch for that, and we learn from the incidents that are happening in the industry, in government. I want to say that we have not had a breach during my tenure at OTEC. We conduct third-party, independent risk assessments of our environment from a physical, from a virtual, from a network perspective, and from policy perspective also, to find any vulnerabilities that there could be before hackers get to those vulnerabilities. And if we find any, we resolve and mitigate those immediately. We continuously work on improving our security posture. There is always room to improve, and we work on that continuously. We collaborate with industry and with government entities, law enforcement entities, to make sure that if there are attacks that are underway, or if there's information that we need to know, that we collaborate with FBI, Cal OES, with state information security officer, and as well as cybersecurity organizations that are available to us who can give us heads ups. One of the other areas that we are active in, and it has proven very beneficial, is a work group that we have created called the Secure Internet Gateway. This is a work group of all information security officers of all departments. So when a virus or a security threat happens or it's on its way, that we can all collaborate about, and if it is happening, stop the bleeding as soon as possible. So we are continuously monitoring, we are learning, and we are improving our expertise and tools in order to do a better job in reducing risks. Everyone is vulnerable. What can we do to reduce our risks is what we have been working on. I hope I answered your first question.
Thank you very much. Now, we have no successful security breaches. Can you tell us more or less, give us a ballpark figure, how many attempts there have been to hack into our systems?
Sure. Typically and historically, we mitigate 40,000 vulnerabilities a year. These could be patches also included that you get from vendors. But this year...
Could you explain what that means, patches?
Yes. These are fixes to software that we run at the data center that a vendor would tell us you need to run this fix on top of the software that you're running. And these are based on the vulnerabilities that they have found on their software.
And that doesn't cost us any money, does it?
No, just staff time to implement those patches. We also found that this year, specifically, not just for the industry, but for us as well, there has been a lot more attacks and vulnerabilities this year than in prior years. So we are even busier than usual mitigating and stopping any attacks that could be coming.
To help mitigate and secure, fortify, if you will, a wall or super wall against these attacks, does that, do you have enough within your own infrastructure, or does this require more usage of vendors from the outside to engage with this issue?
We do use assistance from our telecommunication providers, definitely. And there are tools that would strengthen our security and our posture for security that we do use from vendors as well as internal staff.
Okay. Let me ask you an open-ended question, and this is just a perception issue, but based on ample evidence. There's always this sort of kind of perception, if you will, that you have government, state government, and I have no doubt that you do an excellent job, hence your appointment by Governor Brown. And you have outside vendors, and not to prejudice any particular outside vendor, but whether it's some new type of program, once we go live, there's kinks, there are in the system itself, and it ends up costing taxpayers, tens of millions of dollars. Sometimes you go to litigation. I know a case, obviously, has nothing to do with state government, but rather local government at a local school district. But before they went live, obviously, there was a lot of kinks in the system, and folks were underpaid, overpaid, not paid. That injury to insult, the consulting firm in this case, had come back, done an assessment, and asked the school district to pay them more money to fix the problem. So we've seen this time and time again, and there's always a perception that the outside vendors are much more smarter, are much more quicker and nimble, and there's, what happens here? Do they, sometimes I'll admit, I've heard it from members themselves, is the scam on, they know what's going to happen, what's going to break down, and they come in for the fix, and the fix always costs a lot more money. So we got a good deal on the front end, but on the back end, it always ends up costing more money. Can you give us some of your thoughts on that? Sure. I know they're very general, but I don't want to prejudice anyone in particular, right. Any vendor, but get your thoughts, please. Because what I'm doing is giving you a perception that is a bipartisan perception, both right. Republicans as well as Democrats, because what we're trying to do is try to do our best to take care of the purse strings of the taxpayers.
Absolutely. First, let me explain a little about Department of Technology and how it's divided into two parts, the operations side and the policy side. I am in the operations side. We run the systems that are already put in production and have passed the stages that you described. But I would like to also talk about the question that you asked, why projects fail and what factors contribute to that. There have been failures in local government, in state government, elsewhere, but there have also been successes. We have had successful projects in IT, such as the most recent California Conservation Corps. I really like to bring that up because they won a national award for putting up a recruitment system using cloud technology, and it was the National Association of State CIOs that gave them the award. But what are some factors that contribute to failure or success of a project? They are things like misestimation of the budget, of the schedule, of not having a clear definition of the scope of the problem at the beginning. Or maybe the organization wasn't ready yet culturally to take on the implementation of the system. The Department of Technology, the policy side, who's responsible for oversight of projects before they come to us and be maintained and operated, is responsible and is taking measures to mitigate all those factors that I described. Under the direction of the state CIO, Director Ramos, we are taking measures to improve those factors that could be impacting the failure of a project.
Thank you. And to be fair, this is a question, a similar question that I posed to Mr. Ramos too when I was sitting right over there where Ms. Slavo was sitting. So with that, I want to open up to my colleagues. Mr. Canella.
Again, I had a nice interview, a nice discussion with Mr. Goes, and obviously he's very qualified for this position. He appears to want the position, which is good. One thing that, in particular that impressed me about this gentleman is that he kept referring to the folks that he provides services to as customers. And I thought that was good because I rely on, I don't know, your particular department. There's so many departments, and it's nice to be treated as a customer. And when you're a state worker working for other state departments, I think occasionally there could be an attitude where I'll get to it when I get to it. And I think by calling them customers means that they're important. They have important services to provide to the constituents of California, and so I think that's great. So I have no further questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Canella. Any questions or commentaries?
I agree with Senator Canella. I was also impressed that you referred to everyone as customers. I was also impressed that you had both public and private sector experience. I think that makes you very qualified, and I look forward to supporting you today.
Thank you.
Very good discussion on security, and I feel that you are very qualified. And the only question I have for the public today is, what additional types of new business services or innovations do you foresee of the tech providing in the near future? Just very briefly. Maybe more about what we end users will get to do than about the specific technology.
Right. Well, I mentioned a couple. Cloud computing is pretty prevalent, and we will be moving more and more towards cloud computing. But as far as an end user experience, what you will see is the digitalization of government, where you can access these databases and systems that you typically have to get in front of a large screen on your mobile devices, on your handheld devices. So more and more we will be driving towards mobility. And I want to also use this time to say that we also won a mobility award recently for the catalog of the mobile applications that State of California put up. And that's available on our website as well.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Goetz, any questions? Any further questions or commentaries? Seeing none, those in support. We have any witnesses in support? Coming up. We have someone coming up, I think. Yes, come on up.
Hi, my name is Russ Guarna. I'm Vice President, State and Local Government for Tech America. We are one of the largest, trade associations for the IT industry. We have submitted a letter on Mr. Goad's behalf in support of his confirmation. We're also here to show our support for his confirmation.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Any other folks in support? Seeing none, those in opposition? Also seeing no opposition. Okay. I think I want to thank you very much, Mr. Goads, and thank you for bringing up your family, especially your sons and daughter, so they can witness your confirmation in real time. I want to entertain a motion so we can send this nomination to the Senate floor for confirmation. We have a motion that's been made by our Vice Chair, Ms. Fuller. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Senators Cannella. Aye. Cannella, aye. Leyva. Aye. Leyva, aye. Mitchell. Fuller. Aye. Fuller, aye. DeLeon.
Aye.
DeLeon, aye.
Measure passes on a 4-0 vote. I want to welcome you back to your position and congratulations, Mr. Goetz. Thank you. I presume you're Mr. Doyle.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Doyle. Okay. All right. Well, Mr. Doyle, welcome. Good afternoon. We want to welcome you. We know that you're before us as the governor's appointment for the Chief Deputy Director at the Department of Developmental Services. Before you give us your opening statement, is there anyone in particular that you'd like to introduce or present?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members. I would like to, as with my predecessor, Mr. Goads, I'm blessed to be from a large family as well, a number of whom are here today.
Great.
So in the interest of time, I would just like to introduce my wife, Nancy.
That's smart. That's smart.
Who has put up with 25 years of state service.
And that'd be you. Okay. That's not you in the front. Okay. Just want to make sure we get the right wife too. Right here. Okay. Welcome. Okay. You may proceed with your statement.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be before the committee today, and I wanted to give you a little bit of information on my background. I've spent 25 years in state service. The bulk of it has been in fiscal policy and administrative work. The last 9 years of my career were spent at the Department of Finance, and in my capacity there, I worked for a number of years on the Department of Developmental Services assignment. It was one of the most interesting and enjoyable assignments that I had while I was at Finance. So when the Secretary of the Health and Human Services Agency, Diana Dooley, approached me about coming over to Developmental Services, I was very pleased and honored. We, working with our regional center partners, provide services to over 270,000 individuals in California with intellectual and developmental disabilities. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Doyle. I want to open up to questions or commentaries from the members right now. Ms. Leyva.
Hello, Mr. Doyle. I want to ask you a little bit about Lanterman, which closed on December 31st. That is in my district, and it's a very big piece of land, about 300 acres, and just wondering what the plans were for that center once it's completely closed.
Right. You're correct, Senator. The last resident transferred out of Lanterman into community living on December 23rd. The facility has moved into what we call warm shutdown. And what that means is that the facility is it's not open 24/7 the way it typically would be. It's only open between 6 a.m. and 10 a.m. and we provide services to any former residents through the outpatient clinic that may need some type of medical services that may not be available in the community.
And what are the plans for the land, if you know, once it's completely closed down?
There are discussions that are currently ongoing regarding the land. While there hasn't been a definite decision made, our understanding is that the Cal State Pomona is interested in the land because it is adjacent to their property.
Very good. This is kind of an important issue to me and the constituents in my district. So upon your appointment, I hope that you'll stay in contact with me and we can work together on that.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No further questions.
Thank you very much, Ms. Leyva. Any other questions or commentaries from my colleagues? None from Mr. Cannella. Ms. Fuller.
I just have a short statement of thoughts here. First, I'd like to say that I don't have any concerns about Mr. Doyle, your experience, or your ability to handle the job of Chief Deputy Director. We think you're very qualified, and we appreciate your, I think, 25 years of service. But speaking of developmental services more broadly, we're very supportive of it, and I'm really happy to see the reform efforts being made to improve the viability of the community services system. And I'm very pleased to stay informed with that as you go along, if there's any controversies or problems that might affect that part of the services, we'd like to be informed. And we're especially looking forward to the commitment that all the task force and work groups meetings will be open for everyone to participate, and I appreciate your commitment to that and to the fact that you'll make sure that all members of your staff are aware of that policy.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Doyle, let me ask you what you foresee, if in fact, if you foresee any challenges, if so, if you can articulate those challenges as this specific department moves away from a more institutional setting to more community-based type setting. Do you foresee any challenges, and if so, which ones are they?
Yes, there are a number of challenges that we're going to face, Senator, as we move forward. As you mentioned, we are moving, there is a moratorium on admissions into our developmental centers. The only way that you can be placed in a developmental centers is if the court places you there. So the population in the developmental centers is shrinking. The number of staff that are required to provide support is declining. So we understand that the developmental centers, as they look today, will look very different even 5 years from now. One of the challenges that we see is developing the resources in the community so that individuals who are currently served in developmental centers will receive those same types of services in the community. One of the home models that we've developed is a residential home for individuals who have special health care needs. We call these SB 953 homes, and SB 962 homes, and SB 853 homes after the legislation that enabled them. And what these homes are is they're like mini clinics. They provide people with 24/7 nursing care. They are equipped with backup generators so that there is always power to ensure that any type of medical device that is necessary is able to operate. So building resources like that out in the community, I think, is going to be a big part of the challenge that we face going forward. We have the money to do that, and we're working diligently with our regional center partners to develop these types of resources.
Okay, I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you.
I wish you the best of luck. Okay, with that, I'd like to entertain a motion. No, I'm sorry, I apologize. Supporters. Any folks? Please come on up. Those in support of this nomination.
Mr. President, members, Carl London here on behalf of the California Disability Services Association. We are an organization statewide of 100 community-based nonprofits that serve the population served by this department on a daily basis. We're here today backing up the letter of support that we filed in support of Mr. Doyle. We think he's a fine guy for this job. I do want to make a couple of comments, though, relating to some of the issues that we would ask you to keep a close watch on as this moves forward, and also as the next appointment comes up, which is for the director's position. There's a few things going on right now that are quite relevant to what's going to happen with this population, and we absolutely look forward to working with Mr. Doyle on these issues. The federal government has come down recently with some massive changes proposed to the CMS guidelines that guide the funding relationship we have with the federal government for this population. A lot of the direction they're seeking promotes independence in a model where people should be living as independently as they can out of the community among us. That's absolutely the right spirit that we're all, should be heading in the direction of. However, some of the speed with which they want to move could threaten a lot of people out in the community in your districts today and their family members who have certain arrangements set up and programs that they work with the individuals and the agencies in their community. And, literally, if the federal government were allowed to move forward on some of the guidelines, they would literally throw people out of existing programs because they wouldn't be funded anymore under federal funding. And we've got to keep a careful watch on that. I think we're also at a point in time where everybody would agree that this system has been, at least in the community, which serves 270,000 Californians and their families every day, we are at a point of chronic underfunding. And we are looking for more from the department than just simply doing their job and following along in the budget process. We are looking for leadership. We're looking for proposals to this body that will help fix these situations. And we'd ask that there be careful contemplation of policies like, for example, removing exclusions from overtime.
Well, why don't we do that through the legislative process and the executive process right now? And I'm hearing your comments, and I think they're good, positive recommendations, but I want to stay germane to Mr. Doyle's confirmation. I know this is tangentially related to the progress of the institution as a whole, but let's just be as germane as possible to Mr. Doyle.
Yeah, let me make two final points and I'll get out of your way.
No, you're not in the way.
The other thing to consider is that we've had some massive claims of abuse at some of the existing institutions. Sonoma Developmental Center had over 30 rapes and abuses of women who really don't have the right to even, or the capacity to give consent to sexual activity. They have been raped, abused. I'm not aware of a single termination or disciplinary action by the department yet of employees who are involved in that. I can't imagine living every day in the place where I was abused with perpetrators or people who investigated these crimes being allowed to walk freely among there. And that wouldn't happen in the community. In the community, people would be arrested, they would be prosecuted, programs would be closed. The last thing on the developmental centers, it is a great idea to look at other uses. We would ask the department and Mr. Doyle to look very carefully at the proposition of the $500 million we spend in operations in the developmental centers today, and probably the $700 million in property that we have today, and look at some transfer of those assets into the community to address the problems that I raised earlier. We like Mr. Doyle a great deal. He has a great background for this at the Department of Finance. We've worked with him there. We trust him to be a good person in this regard, and we urge your confirmation.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. London, thank you very much for your thoughtful and insightful comments. Thank you.
Greg DeGier with the ARC and United Cerebral Palsy California Collaboration, which is a coalition of people with intellectual disabilities and all developmental disabilities and their families, friends, and service providers. We support Mr. Doyle because we believe that the department needs people of his expertise and his integrity at this time. The system, the community-based system of supports and services is crumbling as a result of over $1 billion in cuts in the last 5 years, on top of years of rate freezes. To stop that and reverse it before it's too late, we've been working with him, we've been working with others. We've, particularly since he took office, we have not agreed on everything. I'm sure we will not always agree on everything, but he's always been straight with us, and he's been working very hard, and we support his nomination.
Thank you. Next witness in support.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee and distinguished staff. Rick Rollins, on behalf of the Association of Regional Center Agencies, we're here in strong support of John Doyle for his confirmation as Chief Deputy Director of DDS. I personally have had many years of experience working with John, both as an advocate for developmental disabilities and as a parent of a son with autism, and he's always been very respectful, he's smart, dedicated, and very accessible to everyone in the community, and urge your strong support for his confirmation.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Any other witnesses in support? No other witnesses in support? Any folks in opposition? No opposition? Okay. Everyone loves you, or everyone's afraid of you? Yeah. Or both? Okay, we have no opposition right now. Can I entertain a motion? Okay, we have a motion that's been made by Senator Connie Leyva to send Mr. Doyle's nomination to the Senate floor for full and complete approval, confirmation by the Senate body, and back down to the governor. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Senators Cannella? Aye. Cannella, aye. Leyva? Leyva, aye. Mitchell? Fuller? Aye. Fuller, aye. DeLeon?
Aye.
DeLeon, aye.
Mr. Doyle, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
We're going to take a break for about 5 minutes. It is 2:39. We'll be back, let's say, at 2:45 p.m.